Can a 24th pick in the draft actually be the most important spot on the board? We are exactly 24 days away from the 2026 NFL Draft, and today we're looking at a selection that has delivered some of the most iconic names to ever lace up a pair of cleats. From the ball-hawking secondary of Ed Reed to the legendary career of Aaron Rodgers, pick number 24 is a powerhouse for franchise legends. Grab your notebook and settle in. It's time to head back into the pig pen with our guest, Ed Cleese.
Hey, Darren, how are you?
I am doing super. We are really counting down now. 24 days is not very many days. And, these teams are really getting ready for the draft, and we're getting ready with some great football history.
Yes, for sure. Yeah, it's starting to get into this is going to be a good one. Yesterday, we talked about how bad the number 25 pick history it was, and it was shockingly bad. And this one is quite good.
Yeah, this one, God, you would think it was like a top 5 pick with some of these stars that we're going to be talking about tonight.
Yep. Yeah, this one was very impressive when I was going back.
Right. All right. Well, why don't you, if you want to give any more opinion on it, or if you want to get into your top 5,
I'd say lots of strong candidates, and I think that my top 3 is excellent here, just excellent. The last 10 years, we kind of talk about that a lot. I'd say it's been so it's kind of cooled off over the years. Tyler Smith for the Cowboys is a nice player. Josh Jacobs was drafted 24th, and DJ Moore. Those are 3 guys that everybody would kind of know that are good contributors to their teams. There was an unreal run from 2002 to 2011. All 5 of my top 5 came from that period, along with a few honorable mention. And remember, we mention this every time. I'm only going back to 1980, but all of my guys came from about a 9-year span, really. I guess that's 10 drafts, 2002 to 2011. And this is very arbitrary, but, I just went through the 45 guys that have been drafted since 1980 at number 24. And I said, how many of these guys can we say would be considered good picks? And for all the other numbers, that was maybe somewhere between maybe 12 at most, maybe 15. This one I counted between 22 and 25 guys that you would say that was a good pick. That team is happy they made that selection. So almost half, which is very different from the other ones that we've done. In terms of busts, there was only a few. Now, there was one in 2013, right after my run here. There was do you remember Bjorn Werner?
No, I saw the name and I thought maybe he was a tennis player. I wasn't sure.
Yeah, there aren't a lot of Bjorns that have been drafted into the NFL, and maybe this is why. He played like high school football in Germany. So he was like a German. There's a weird backstory on how he got into football, but he played at Florida State and played well, obviously. Wound up in a first pick. He was out of the league quickly. Do you remember Tom Ricketts?
That name sounds much more familiar than Bjorn's does.
Okay,
I can't remember him as a college player.
The Steelers drafted Tom Ricketts in the first round in 1989 at offensive lineman, and he only wound up with 15 total starts in his career. So that would be kind of a bust. And then probably the biggest bust that we all remember would be in 91, the Raiders took Todd Marinovich. Who, famously, his father well, really, I guess you could say almost abused him into becoming an athlete, a quarterback. He fell off the deep end, got in all kinds of issues, post-career. His career was short. I don't think he really loved football at all. I probably hated it. And then, had a lot of off-field issues and a little bit of a tough go. And then one other one I had that was kind of negative or just sad was Corey Stringer was drafted there in 95. And if you remember, he passed away in training camp from heat stroke. I think about 4 years into his career. He was having a nice career for the Vikings on the O-line. And so that one kind of stuck out as sort of maybe the negative ones. But then we've got to talk about my honorable.
Well, as long as you're talking about negatives, I know you're talking 1980, but I got maybe one of the biggest draft busts in history was selected at 24. And that's the only 2-time Heisman winner. Archie Griffin from Ohio State was drafted in let's see what year that was now, 1976, the bicentennial year.
Okay.
So exactly 50 years ago. Didn't do so well in the NFL, but a great college player.
Right. Yeah. He was almost, he was out of the league quickly if my memory serves. So yes, definitely a bust there. I have the honorable mention. We can't get into these guys, but this will give you an idea of some of the guys. These are the guys that did not make my top five. We got Des Bryant, Brandon Merriweather, Jonathan Joseph, Eric Moulds, Rodney Hampton, Ken O'Brien, quarterback for the Jets. All those guys had nice careers. And then
if they would have been selected at pick 25, they would probably be in the top five.
Yeah, exactly. Some of them would have been in the running for sure. And my toughest cuts, I had three of them. David DeCastro, offensive lineman that you're very familiar with from his days in Pittsburgh. Dallas Clark, tight end for the Colts during some of their glory years, of course. And then my toughest cut, I know you'll remember this guy. We're going way back. 1981, the Chargers took James Brooks. Sort of a jack of all trades, Swiss Army knife running back. And as a kid, I remember I remember him more as a Bengal. He's on that 88 Bengals team.
He would kill the Steelers when he was with the Bengals.
Was great. He was great. He was maybe a little bit ahead of his time too, because he was such a good receiver. They could line him up on the outside as well. So James Brooks was the guy. He was my final cut outside the top five, but a really nice player.
Yeah, and I know why we're letting some of these people out of the top five, because you've got some superstars that you're going to talk about in your top five. So the spotlight is yours, and let's shine on them.
So number five, and there was probably an argument to put Brooks ahead of my number five guy, but I just weighed something really heavily, and I've got Chris Johnson at number five, drafted in 2008, running back for the Titans. The negative we'll start with is his career was over in a flash. It was he went downhill. We talk about the short life of a running back a lot, and he would be the ultimate example of that. He played 10 years, but he only had 18 starts over his last 4 full seasons. So he wasn't a factor at the end, but he perhaps had the best 3-year start for any running back in the history of the NFL. Like literally, he had over 4,500 yards those first 3 years. He had a 2,000-yard season, which of course is an ultimate benchmark for that position. And then the next 3 years after that, he did eclipse 1,000 in each of those. So his first 6 years, he was over 1,000 each year. And then after that, everything slipped. His yards per carry, everything went downhill, and he was kind of a non-factor in the league fairly quickly. But he, for a couple of years there, you may have argued he was the best player in the NFL.
Yeah, he was definitely the dude had some wheels that were on fire, because I just remember the speed of that guy. And I think, he wasn't like a tremendously big back. He wasn't super tiny either. But, sit there and think about how they were running him. They were running him, a lot of B gap and stuff. The zone blocking was just starting to come in. So he's running through between the big guys. And that takes a toll on a body, when you're giving up, 150 pounds of these guys and you're fast, you take away your speed, that it does a lot to your career. It makes you go down.
And we've seen it with that position a lot. And, the Titans, Eddie George, Chris Johnson, and Derrick Henry, since moving to Tennessee. So we're talking 3 legit all-time great running backs to play in the Titans. So it's been a rich tradition for them.
Yeah, most definitely. But the other thing with Johnson is there seemed to be like right when he had his big payday, that's when his career started falling. So maybe his pockets were weighed down with too much money. Maybe
you just never know. Some guys, that does happen to some guys. I would like to think it was more of the positional, just taking the beating. And like you say, you lose that step at that position. It's hard to make up for it. But you never know. You could get a little fat and happy too. That's definitely possible.
Could be. All right. So who do you have at number 4?
Same position, almost the opposite kind of career and player. This would be Steven Jackson, running back, drafted in 2004 by the Rams. He never had like an explosive, unreal season like Chris Johnson did, but 8 straight 1,000-yard seasons. And he was in the post greatest show on turf era for the Rams. So I think sometimes people get that confused. Like he was the running back for those teams. He wasn't. This was like post-Warner, the Mark Bulger teams, when the Rams were good, but no longer great. And they ran the ball a whole lot more. He also was a very good receiver. He had 90 catches in 2006, just as an example. And when I looked at his numbers and everything, he's just very, very steady. Just, 8 years in a row going for 1,000 yards is rare, and worthy of this list and worthy of being ahead of Johnson because of that longevity.
Yeah, he was just he was almost like a beast mode before beast mode. He was really tough in between the tackles and just gain those tough yards for you, but very steady, very consistent, and really, really good back for the Rams.
Yep. And now as we get into the top three, now we start talking Canton. So one of these guys is already there. The other two will be. My number 3 guy will be in Canton someday. That is Cam Jordan. Drafted in 2011 by the Saints. He is still going, kind of going strong. He's a legacy player. His dad, Steve, played tight end in the NFL for a number of years. And Cam, 15 seasons and counting. He's missed a couple of games, but I think that's literally it, like a couple games in 15 years. And one thing I really love about Cam Jordan, many times in his career, Darren, he's led all defensive linemen in the NFL in snap count. So not only is he playing and starting these games, he's on the field all the time. He's not rotated out very often. He plays all 3 downs, 4 downs. He doesn't get a lot of breathers. He's had 3 All-Pro appearances. We always talk about that as being much more indicative of greatness than Pro Bowls. He's had multiple Pro Bowls, of course. He's got 132 sacks, 7 double-digit sack seasons, including last year in 2025. He had a 10-plus sack season. So, you're 15 seasons into your career. You never come off the field. You're still getting double-digit sacks. I will see you in your gold jacket.
Yeah, that's really called taking care of your body through the years. Great physical specimen, great ball player, and great guy. I mean, especially a guy that's taking a beating in there with the big fellas. Every play you're just getting beat on every.
Because you're right, he's not a speed rusher. He's not he plays on the edge, but he's not that typical like long, sleek. He can do it all. A tremendous player and apparently a great guy. And a legendary Saint. So the gold will look good on him.
Yeah, that's for sure. Good pick. Okay, so who do you have at 2?
This is kind of fun because you could probably go back and forth on this 1-2. We could probably fight here all day. So I kind of flipped a coin, but I have a reason. So my number 2 is Aaron Rodgers. Drafted in 2005, of course, by the Packers. I don't have any notes for Aaron Rodgers because I don't think anybody needs me to tell you about him or point anything out about Aaron Rodgers that you don't already know. If we're talking very, very broad and big picture here, I suppose if you're going to try to poke any holes in his career, it would be there have been some postseason disappointments. Not necessarily that fall back on him because he's had some bad luck, the defense, he's had that shootout in Arizona they lost when you can't really blame him. He had the choke job in Seattle in the NFC Championship game. But there were a couple playoff games in there where their offense struggled a little bit. So if you're squinting really hard to poke any holes in Rodgers' career, I guess you can maybe find some. But in my opinion, I don't have him in the top 5 quarterbacks of all time, but I do have him number 1 as a thrower of the football. Maybe even ahead. The only other one I could think of was Marino. But I think I have Rodgers number 1 in just pure accuracy and throwing a football.
Yeah, I mean, I appreciated him before, but seeing him play for my team last season, the guy has got it all going on between the ears too, because he has got to be one of the most intellectual quarterbacks in the line, save Tom Brady that has ever played the game. When you're doing the hard counts and you're just all the little stuff, not taking timeouts when coaches are telling you to take timeouts because it's just a dumb idea, and just all kinds of stuff that he's doing, smart passing. But yeah, he can definitely spin a ball and put it in really tight places that most humans would never think about throwing to.
Yeah, he's. I mean, what are you gonna say? When I think of Rodgers, I probably always think of that throw in Dallas in the playoff game on the
Oh yeah.
sideline. That's the one that sticks out to me because that right there is like no one else, maybe in the history of the NFL, could do that. You know what I mean? In terms of the how long that throw was, how accurate it was. Kind of on the move. It's just unbelievable. So just an incredible talent, an interesting guy, played in an iconic venue for so long, and played for a very, very long time. So how could you possibly not have that guy number one, Ed, right?
Yeah, that's true. And he's also the master of the off-season drama, as I think we're starting to see again this year.
Yes, he enjoys the spotlight. I think he likes to hear himself talk. I think we can all agree with that. Now, number one though, is a guy that was actually kind of quiet. I think actually, but perhaps the greatest safety to ever live, and that is Ed Reed, drafted in 2002 by the Ravens. 9 All Pros. That's insane. He has the most all-time interception return yards, and he has the most all-time postseason interceptions. And the reason I point that out is because Reed was so tough and good and physical against the run, and he was a playmaker, and he was a big game player. And the main reason that I've got Reed over Rodgers, and it was the only way I could weigh it out, was on the all-time safety list, I would have Ed Reed a little higher than I would have Rodgers on the all-time quarterback list. I think you could definitely make the argument that Ed Reed is the best safety in the history of the NFL. The only thing about Reed would be that his career wasn't super long. It wasn't, he didn't have one of those 18, 19-year careers. It was more of like that 10 to 12-year window, but that's enough for me.
Yeah, well, I would debate he's the best safety because I think a guy that played parallel in the same division with him, I might argue he might be better. And maybe
I compared them. I did them side by side with Polamalu. I did that. And Reed wins in pretty much all of the analytical categories. Anything that you can measure, Reed's above, including games played. And I thought Reed's career was almost like a tad short, but he played more than Polamalu did. That's a very close battle, but I would have Reed ahead.
Fair enough. I think Reed was a better ball hawk, and he stayed in single position. Polamalu was a chess piece and changed way offenses had to play the game. And I think he was a little bit more versatile than Ed Reed, but neither here nor there. This is Ed Reed's spotlight. You pick him number one, and I think that's a good selection. I like how you chose him over Rodgers. I think that's fair the way you did that. And he is our only slot number 25 that has a gold jacket right now. So that gives him a little edge over Rodgers, but Rodgers,
he'll be there. Rodgers
still 5 years away before he's even eligible. So
yeah, Rodgers and Jordan will be there. Maybe they'll go at the same time if they retire in the same year.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. Yep. Very true. All right. Well, that's a pretty solid top 5. I'd take those 5 guys on my team any day and their
sure.
prime, I might take them now on my team.
Yeah, really. No kidding.
So yeah, that's some really good pick in there. There really is nobody before 1980 that's really worth talking about, except for Griffin, which we already had something to say about, just sort of a ho-hum, pick before 1980. We do have some interesting statistics, though. If you're thinking that maybe history might repeat itself and your team is picking at number 24, well, defensive backs have gone more than any other position, 13 times out of the 90 NFL drafts that we've had so far. That's the other thing is, if you're looking for schools that might be selected, well, the University of Pittsburgh and USC are tied as the most frequent school selected at this spot, each appearing 4 times, having one of their players drafted in the number 24 slot.
Go Panthers.
Yeah, and Trojans. Okay, I guess that leads us to our draft stat of the day. And this is a kind of cool one. This is going all the way back to the first draft. There was absolutely not one scout on a team at the first draft. It's held in 1936. The inaugural NFL draft was a quiet affair in a hotel room, and there was no cameras. Really, nobody even knew what was really going on. It was it was kind of a new thing. I think no sport was doing any drafts. The NFL, I believe, was the first one to be doing that. And they made picks based on newspaper clippings, and that's what they did. But this is the thing that's really going to blow your mind. There's 81 players drafted in the first draft. Only 24 of them played in the NFL. All the rest of them, including the number one pick, the Heisman winner, who was the very first Heisman. He was the very first NFL draft pick and the very first Heisman winner, was Jay Berwanger. Ended up going and becoming like a foam salesman or something instead of NFL. And he made a lot more money being a salesman than you would in the NFL in 1936.
Right. Probably that makes sense. Now they got him hooked up to electrodes so they can like read their dreams before they make a pick. Yeah.
Yeah. That's
come a long way.
Yeah, it definitely has. So it'll be interesting to see who gets selected at the 24 pick this year. And but we're going to be coming back with 23 more days leading up to the draft, and we'll be right here with you. Ed will talk to you tomorrow about slot number 23.
See you tomorrow, Darren.
That's all the football history we have today, folks. Join us back tomorrow for more of your football history. We invite you to check out our website, pigskindispatch.com, not only to see the daily football history, but to experience positive football with our many articles on the good people of the game, as well as our own football comic strip, Cleat Marks Comics. Pigskindispatch.com is also on social media outlets, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and don't forget the Pigskin Dispatch YouTube channel to get all of your positive football news and history. Special thanks to the talents of Mike and Gene Monroe, as well as Jason Neff for letting us use their music during our podcast.
This podcast is part of the Sports History Network, your headquarters for the yesteryear of your favorite sport. You can learn more at sportshistorynetwork.com.